Hurry up and start. Why you take it forever? Oh, here it goes. This Hangout on Air is live. Thank you for joining us to OreAni, the end of spring 2019. I know a lot of you are sad for this season to be gone, but summer is already here, so we shouldn't be sad for long. With me today, we got Jessica.
Hello.
The noisy Nick. It's his house is noisy at least. And Vincent.
Hello.
And I believe we'll have Sean later on today. So we'll give a call out for Sean and give a call out to Albert. Albert, wherever you are, just know that anime is waiting for you. Come back. Our first title for today is going to be the ever so cool Shield Hero, or Rise of the Shield Hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was actually started back in the winter season, and it's now completely over. It's finished airing, at least for season 1. So,
Has a season 2 been greenlit?
I have no idea. I didn't actually watch past the credits. I don't know if it did like that elusive season 2 soon, you know?
No, I watched past the credits and they didn't have anything like that.
Well, I'm happy because usually when they do that season 2 thing, it usually never comes, in my experience.
Oh.
Like, what was it? The Flower of Evil or something like that said there's like another season coming. And never did.
I guess.
What about No Game, No Life?
I don't know if there was actually a message promising a season 2 at the end of it, though. I know we were promised Senkoro 2, and it's actually finally coming out kind of soon in theatrical release Japan. Allegedly. I mean, I'm not there, so.
So let's talk about the Shield Hero. So what do you guys think of the ending?
It was very different from the books, and the ending kind of makes me think they don't have another season in the works because a lot of Naofumi's character is that he doesn't trust people and that he doesn't want to stay in this world. And so all of his motivation is wrapped up in him trying to find a way to go home. But since he made that village and he told Raftalia that he was going to stay, that kind of leads me to believe that they decided to give it a happy-ish ending rather than leaving it open-ended.
Yeah, that confused me like crazy. I was like, I don't. That's not what happened, because it always seemed that everything he did after the island was to prepare for when he leaves, so that everyone can still sustain their life.
Exactly. And so with that motivation out of the picture, you suddenly render a lot of the plot in the later books. That would have to be retooled, or at least he'd have to have some other inciting event to make him want to go back home.
Yeah, so that it was nice how it kind of finally got to that part where I guess the show kind of started from, right?
Mm-hmm.
With that scene with the birds and everything, and
right,
with your crazy CG birds.
They were so bad.
So it finally did the full circle there, I think, and it was the thing that surprised me a lot was how they told Raftalia's story in the second half of the second core, and I really liked that.
Mm-hmm. For the most part, I really thought that the anime improved upon the source material, because the light novels are not very well written, and they're kind of a pain to read. But I liked the changes in the anime for the most part, because it streamlined a lot of characters and ideas. It actually gave names to some characters, because the shop owner that Naofumi frequents, the armorer, he was just called Old Guy. for 13 books. And they actually bothered to give him a name in the show. So that was nice.
Wait, they did give him a name?
They did give him a name in the show. I can't remember it because I'm old and I can't remember anything anymore. But they did give him a name.
For some reason, I always thought his name was very similar to the blacksmith in Sword Art Online.
I don't remember his name.
I don't know why I always thought they were very similar to each other, and I'm like, that's got to be his name. But other than that, yeah, I don't see how this is going to continue on. I could see why they try to put an ending, and if they are going to do a season 2, it's going to be very different from what we expect.
Mm-hmm.
It has to continue because of everything they keep on adding, those new otherworld heroes, as they call them, or that come with the wave, that no conflict is just there's just too much stuff that they added at the end for it to be over.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I linked the name of the guy. I actually have watched way too many shows to ever remember names for anything. Like I went to an anime convention recently where they did like a Jeopardy and they were like looking for main characters' names. And for like the people who watch a lot of shows, it's like that's our one downfall. We cannot remember everybody's names.
I am right there with you.
Yeah, especially when they tend to have a lot of the same names or similar names. But if you ever get stuck, you can always go for those Sakuras, like one that's always being used. But I don't know why, but the show did seem. I haven't read the light novel all the way. I read the web novel, and it's very, very different to the light novel. So, as far as like light novel changes to the show, I don't know how big or different they were. I know on YouTube there's this one channel that posts nothing but, here's what they skip. Here's the content they skip for episodes 1 and 2, or and then here's the content skip for 3 and 4 and such. And things didn't go 100% the way that I remember it, but
I think in a way that's a good thing though, because the light novel had a lot of redundancy and a lot of fat that needed to be trimmed.
Yeah,
have a more streamlined narrative. So I'm of the opinion that the changes they made improved it, but I guess that depends if you're a purist or not. You might not care for that.
So one thing that I really like that they did a lot, or did take away, is the fact that they did focus a lot on his cooking at one point that I read. So they took that away, which I thought was pretty nice, because I hated, like, this is not a cooking isekai. Come on, this is you're fighting away, he's trying to become stronger. So why are you focusing on cooking? So they did that a lot in the book I was reading, and or the story I was reading. But so overall, would you say this is a good title to recommend with how it ended and how the thing went?
I think so. Overall, I would, because if nothing else, it's a really pretty show. It has some very well animated fight scenes. The character designs are really pleasing to look at. I think it'd be a pretty good show to watch if you like isekai, or even if you haven't seen an isekai show. I don't know if a person like that exists anymore, but if they're out there, then this would be one to check out.
Oh.
The other thing I love about this show is the fact that you hate one of the heroes more than you hate the enemy.
Yeah.
So that was very pleasing, or not pleasing, but very different. And this guy, oh man, he bugged me so much. Motoyasu, right?
Yeah.
It was.
He's just a tool. He's an absolute tool.
But the other characters, I never understood them or why they acted like there's just almost like they didn't care, especially Ren, the sword hero, and Itsuki, which is the bow hero. They acted very, how do you say it? Very um, on the side of everything. Like it doesn't pertain to them, or this doesn't matter because it's not part of the game I recognize. So it's to me,
Indifferent.
yeah, different. I mean, they just didn't seem to believe in this world like Naofumi did.
Well, they were so sure that their assessment of the world was the right one, that when presented with any evidence to the contrary, they would accuse the other person of lying, and the other person was usually Naofumi. But I liked that in the anime they weren't as stubborn as in the book, is that they seemed to come around to reason a lot faster, whereas in the book I really find it hard to believe that a person would cling to their opinions for that long after seeing evidence after evidence to the contrary. And so it was nice that we didn't have to feel with the frustration of these guys just being idiots for as long as they were in the books.
Yeah, that's something else. While I haven't read the books, I kind of had a hard time, like with how you guys said at the beginning that like Naofumi had like just a lot of rage and he was this very angry character. And while at times they portrayed that, like towards the end of the show, they kind of really did away with that. And I didn't know if that was like part of the stories or not, like if he kind of chills out later or if that was just something that was done for the anime again.
Not really. He possesses the shield of wrath. And so his anger and his hatred and frustration at everything that happened to him is what fuels that shield and gives him his power. And he is not at peace with what happened to him, really. He also hates the world that he's been forced to protect. And he hasn't really come around and forgiven anyone for everything that they did to him. So
And
they really glossed that over in the show.
I also thought it was kind of strange how at first you're introduced to the story of the waves and you're simply defending the world. And then there's like this new narrative where the waves are also the waves are also happening in another world. And that world is sending people over to this world to assist, the enemies with the wave because it will end the wave sooner for the other side. And I just kind of was going, you know what, like as a concept, it's somewhat unique to the story, but I'm just trying to imagine like why are the waves happening like in across two world borders, and you pull in these guys from a totally unrelated world to defend you while the other world is forced to send its warriors over, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like I get it, I'm not picking it apart and disliking it. It's just I'm like that's kind of strange.
So that was a change in the light novel. Because like the web novel, those people never existed. Glass didn't exist, none of them. But one thing I did like, if you ever read the manga, and I like the visuals of how they showed the wave appearing, was that the sky was cracking and it looked like it was breaking apart, and then the waves would come through rather than these weird colorful portals into another world. So I get how the portal things and the visual look of it is really interesting to show the waves going through, but I always thought that the sky breaking and falling apart with the waves coming had this more impactful design to it. It's like the world's falling apart, the world's breaking, and now Earth are being thrown into the chaos rather than this like colorful sky just appearing, being this portal to another world. And I kind of wish they went to that, but it still worked. But there was just some things that I wish that they would have kept in the book version or the manga that I saw. And also with Naofumi and his rage and everything, yeah, it seemed he mellowed out way too much. And that's not how it seemed to me. Like, it always seems that he was always irritated, even he was trying to help people. It wasn't that he was upset that he was thrown into a situation or at those people. He was just upset that why aren't other people doing more to help these people?
Right. He'd grumble about, well, I guess it looks like I have to save everyone again. Grumble, grumble.
Yeah, so it wasn't really later on more rage about his misfortune. It's rage about why this world isn't doing more to help people or do what they need to do so that they can get things done faster.
Or rage that the other heroes were messing everything up for the world and its inhabitants as well.
So the last question that I have on the book versus the anime, Naofumi's punishment for the princess and king, was that in the book too, or was that made for the anime? Okay.
Yes.
I was looking over the characters on a website, and it didn't have their updated name. So I was wondering, well, what if in the book that didn't happen, and that would then make sense. But all right.
Yeah, that definitely happened in the book. And actually, it's kind of funny because on Instagram, I saw a few people posting reaction videos where they're like, yes, this is the best thing ever. when they announced the names of the characters, and there really were those names. And actually, I think the king gets it a whole lot worse in the futures with if you ever read the books. But I don't know if they'll do it in the anime because they do some pretty dumb things. And I don't think they can get away with it in the anime. But other than that, I don't remember the queen, giving Naofumi the choice like that. I don't know if it's just because of the web novel I read, but it seemed like rather than having him change his mind on his own, it seemed like she kind of manipulated him and talked him into changing the names rather than hoping that he would change his mind or she would offer her own life, like she said in the anime.
Truth be told, I don't remember that fine a detail in that situation, but I did like that in the anime they showed the queen, that even though she hated what the king and the princess did and everything, that they were still her family and she still cared for them and didn't want to have to execute them. So there was her duty as a monarch warring with her emotional attachment to these other characters, and it added some depth to her characterization that was not present in the novel. So that's another change that I can get behind.
Mm-hmm. But other than that, very happy with this show. So I don't know if anyone else disagrees with that. I know it was a big deal at the beginning with the whole fake rape thing that supposedly was going on at the beginning, and people complain about why they did that. But I'm glad it didn't hurt the show at all. Let's go to the next title. Which I have no idea what this is about. Moyonaka no Occult Komuni? Komuni? How do you say that?
I know that.
Komoini? Komui?
Komui.
That's a weird word. I'm gonna have to practice that 100 times.
This one was pretty cute. Did anyone else see it besides me?
Looks like Nick watched some of it.
I haven't finished the last few episodes, but I've gotten pretty far into it. I think one of the more things that I just got recently done with, just to parse it for you, is the chapter in which the underworld people returned the resolution of him kidnapping people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm pretty decently into it. It's just I haven't got it all the way through.
It's I have a feeling that it's based on the manga because it seems to be structured in that way where instead of an overarching meta narrative, there are lots of little mini story arcs that can be contained in 1 to 3 episodes depending. And it's neat because it's about a working adult, which we don't get a lot of in anime. So he's younger, probably in his 20s sometime, but the fact that he's not in high school and he has a job, he's a professional, is really kind of cool. And he can talk to these spirits. They're called anothers, which lends itself to some really weird grammatical structure in some of the sentences. But if I would recommend it for someone that likes josei manga or likes paranormal, occult, fairy stuff, because half the fun is seeing these critters in an urban environment, sort of living their own parallel lives alongside humans. And I thought it was really neat in that way. It can be dark at times, but it always ends on a high note, so to speak.
So just to kind of give my take on it, it was set up in that world where yokai-esque physical beings usually, I don't know, half the time kind of not personified, but anthropomorphic, and half the time it digs into a rich amount of lore that I can't place a lot of the characters, but I'm not trying to. We find this guy who starts his first night job somewhere. And what was interesting about it is he finds out that he's going to be working with kind of policing a Men in Black style relationship between these fantasy beings that can sometimes bleed over into kind of reality. The problem, though, is most people can't understand them. They can see them do things and they make noise at the people, and they just kind of. So the people treat them like a phenomenon, like a tornado or something. There's no understanding it. You just kind of got to deal with what you see. And when our protagonist kind of comes along, he, I believe, is somehow related, if not a new incarnation of the what is it, Abe no Seme,
Yes.
The really famous exorcist. And he is said to have the ears of sand, which just simply means he can communicate with these things. So he can literally understand them and talk to them. So we see this interesting part of the story because for the first time ever, we see these people who have been doing this job for a long time are getting some insight as to what's happening. And they still have to kind of wrap their heads around how to deploy this guy, because on one hand, it's almost like a Bakemonogatari style story where the more you get involved with them, the kind of worse for you it is. They're not a neutral being. They have their own agendas, and you don't necessarily want to play into them all the time. So they kind of have to. Sorry, guys. So they have to kind of show him how to communicate with these beings, because even though he's the only one that can talk to them, they don't want him to run too wild with getting too involved, because there, as Jessica was kind of saying, there are some dark aspects to the story. and not everything is all we're the cops and we demand you do stuff for legal reasons, because for a lot of these beings there is no law. They just do what they do, and very much like a natural tornado, there's not much you can say about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I started watching it because I've spent a fair bit of times working on nights myself, and I'm like, I think that's kind of what held me on to the first few episodes, but I eventually opened up to just kind of knowing more about the story of how he uniquely has insight as to what's going on, and through him are we introduced how this kind of world is constructed. And a lot of times I can see like a lot of the mythology behind some of the things that they did. One of the more obvious ones that I was like screaming at the computer screen because I was like, how are you not seeing that, was the Pandora episode. But it's a rather interesting show, but I don't think it's for everyone because it is so... it doesn't really vest itself in action while stuff happens. It is a very like almost slice of life show, but there are some dark aspects to this slice of life.
It's kind of like culture shock, and that's what the plot, or not culture shock, but cultural differences, because like you were saying, these beings are forces of nature, and having a language barrier there really stymies the characters in more ways than one. And so there's one person that deals with the anothers just by killing them. Like his opinion is that these things are dangerous and these should not intrude upon the human way of life. But the main character who can talk to them is, of course, more empathetic, because when you can communicate with someone, you can get further along than when you can't, obviously. So that's why, like Nick said, it's not really emotional. It's kind of like a little mystery-ish in trying to figure out what the anothers are about, or what they want, or why they're doing what they're doing, and then trying to resolve the conflict that arises because they're interfering with something in the human world. So I actually would be more curious about the manga, because I think the story works better in manga form than in an anime. Because anime is so action-oriented and movement-driven, and manga is not. But I haven't read the manga, so I don't know how closely it cleaves to the original story.
I think it's too noisy with Nick up.
They're quieting down.
They have a slumber party over there or something?
No, as you can kind of see, it's very empty where my parents are getting ready to, like, my dad's already in Florida and my mom's going to be moving out like in like a week or two's time. So she had to go out and I'm just over here, and my sister invited friends over. So
Tell them to...
they're not being quiet. And I don't want to tell them not to have fun. So
that's when you put anime on the TV and tell them to enjoy it quietly.
they're not that young.
Wait, I still watch it.
I do too, and I'm older than them. But
so this show, is it recommendable? Should I have watched this, or was it okay? Is it something that I have to have a special interest in?
I think it's special interest. What do you think, Nick?
I would honestly say it just ever so might be worth checking out, but you absolutely have to get hooked in on some aspect of it. I wouldn't say that it's, if we were to look at its popularity, I'm sure it would yield its own results as to how overall people received it. But I mean, like I said, just you could give it a try, but it's not likely to catch many. And yeah.
It's just a ghost, Nick. Don't worry.
Sure.
Well, let's move on to the next title, okay?
Okay.
Next up we have Oh, I messed up a little bit there.
Oh no.
Kono oto tomare. What's so
Very
funny about
lively.
that?
My sister threw peace sign at the video stream and laughed.
Oh. So on here it shows that Vincent and Nick haven't finished this, but you guys want to talk about it? Or Nick wants to talk about it?
Yeah, I do. So yeah, I haven't finished it, but I was going to say, I usually do not like to watch stories about band because it's something I try to get into in junior high, and it just wasn't for me. And I kind of tend to be jaded by that whenever I check out a show with like a lot of, brass instruments. So no sound euphonium and the like for me. But there is an instrument I heard that's like a harp stringed instrument that I've been really interested in. And the Kono Oto Tomare actually covers an instrument called a koto, which probably wasn't the harp instrument I was looking for, but that drew me in to kind of watch it. And one of the things that I actually, like, I'm not going to call this thing a sleeper hit, but what surprised me is it really gave a deep story to many of the characters. Like, it didn't use the cheapest of cheap drama, but there's a lot to unpack in most of the cast of characters here. And I kind of had a lot of fun with that alongside the instrument side of the show, which, I know they have to go out to somebody who's actually competent with playing the koto to get all of their sound pieces. But when I first heard a few of the pieces, I was definitely thinking like, this isn't the harp instrument that I was wanting to hear. So I was almost like considering ditching it then, but I just kind of gave it a little more of a shot. And when they were trying to focus on some of the more amateur pieces, that's where I found like it's not the instrument I wanted, but with that beginner aspect alongside the really big dramatic stories of the characters and their backstories, I was like, this is actually a surprisingly intriguing show. Not for everybody, but much like the one that we were just talking about, I found myself with this one even more so, just kind of drawn in by this, like the story that it spun. And I didn't know what like Vincent was, because I think he might have dropped it instead of just having finished it.
I watched until the episode 5, then my attention kind of wavered up somewhat.
Mhm.
It's still in the back burner. I'm intended to finish it, just haven't got around to it between all the crazy things that's going on around me. But it's, as you said, I like the series simply because it wasn't trying to start all the way from the beginning. Whenever there's a series involving a topic that's not really familiar with, they try to start from the basics, like how to grip, how to do this, how to do that, and usually that bores people to tears because they just kind of wants to get the show running. And I mean, this show has a bit of that too, but it wasn't so wrapped up around to be also very technical about it. So I think it's actually tried to introduce people with the cool sounds from get go, which I liked it. Drama's fine, high school dramas and all that. And as Tank says, it actually had a pretty decent amount of story to the characters that's actually there, not just standing in for just for the sake of it, kind of. Um, uh, if not for nothing, I think it's fairly well drawn. Some of the shows tends to be very shoddy or just completely fell apart after the first 2 episodes or whatnot. This one held up pretty well. I glanced through the later episode to see if there's anything going on, but overall, I think it's a decent series. But I think you have to like or have some kind of interest in either school dramas or bands or group activities to be able to be engaged into this type of series. Otherwise, I think it's probably gonna be just another one just flew over the head.
So I have a quick question.
Sure.
So how does the title go into the show? It says that the title is "Stop the Sound." Why is it called Stop the Sound if it's about music? Is it like someone didn't like it, or is it?
So this show is kind of like an underdog tale. I haven't seen its resolution yet, so I can't say how much of an underdog tale it's going to be. But it is literally the startup of this club who is chasing a sound. They know that they're amateurish. They know that they're beginners. They know that they have a hard time playing in sync with other people's. And one thing that they're recognizing about the instrument is a unique sound that the player produces on it, because from what I gathered from watching the show, it's about like how callous your fingers can be adds to your sound that you make. The strength that you put into like the flicking of the lines kind of just contributes. So its kind of explanation is generally, if you can give a musical piece for someone to play, it and this instrument, it exaggerates how uniquely a person can play it. So a lot of times they'll analyze the sound of the better players and go, oh, how can they play like that? And they'll want tips like, how can I play like that? And most of the tips are like, you just kind of have to develop your own style. There's no one way for everybody to play. And sometimes the amount of practice and what it does to like the geometry of your hand influences what your sound will eventually become. So it vested a lot in that much in raising up talent in this instrument. And I can't say that I really understand what the title is necessarily getting at, because I don't think there was anything bad about what they were doing or anything. It's just I really can't say why they decided to call it Stop This Sound, but sound and how you play the instrument was a rather integral aspect of this show.
I think the part of that title has to do with how they have to frequently make a marking as to when to stop, so that when the other player takes over, they have to be precise about it. And the other part has to do with that the delinquent character, when he was practicing late night, the other two actually overhear him practicing, and he was able to produce this sound that he wasn't able to duplicate before or after. I think it has something to do with that being able to produce a particular sound that comes with they're almost it's a reflection of a soul type of thing, not just a matter of practicing or how much skill they have.
Yeah, and like it was kind of even, you could see it in the opening theme. I remember it was called Tone, and I remember while watching it, like, in the song, the guy was like saying Kimi no Tone a lot. I can't really remember the ending, but I think it also had quite a bit of koto part to it as well. But I think it's just an interesting thing to call the show. I don't know, again, why it would necessarily be translated as Stop This Sound, because I don't even know what Tomare, I see it in the title, but Kono Oto, I can't say I'm translating that in my head enough.
Oh, I was talking and I was muted. Oops. So what were you saying about Kono Oto?
I don't know. Kono might be this. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oto.
Oto sound.
This sound stop. Okay. They did a pretty decent job then. But yeah, so there's a lot in this series where, like I was saying, it's kind of a dramatic underdog tale. So you have to be kind of set in for that. There's a lot of drama to the characters' backstories. There's a lot of drama at foot in the beginning of the show. I'm sure it'll keep up to the end. One of the interesting aspects of it, though, is it did Nakama really well. The group of friends that came together in this, like reboot of the club that almost failed, developed quite these tight bonds, and it's always it was refreshing to kind of watch how they would develop those bonds over time. Like whenever someone tried to shake them, like, oh, you guys suck, you just started playing, you can't make it to nationals, and they're like, yeah, we know, but we're still, it's, the responses drew me into the story a little bit, and how whenever they were tried to be dissuaded, like they just had this rather positive response that kind of strengthened the glue that held them all together. So that's, aside from the drama, that's one of the other things at play here. And I was just generally surprised by it because I didn't think I didn't think I'd be watching a good show. And I'm not saying that it's going to be popular or everybody will like it, but it just simply surprised me with how much more there was to it. Are you muted again, Tank?
Well, no, I'm sorry. All right, so let's go to.
I was just curious if you would recommend this, because I was thinking of getting a Funimation subscription just for this show, since I really like the Koto. Does the story stand well enough on its own?
I mean, while I did enjoy the story, I don't know if I can say like it's a exclusive subscription worthy, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
While I did enjoy it, and I think I would like to hear your opinion about it. I can't just say, you know, absolutely subscribe to this like video streaming service. Just at the very least, check this out and whatever other exclusives they might get.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a hard one for me to comment on.
Okay.
All right, so we head to the next title.
Sure.
Sure.
So let's go to our next isekai title of the season, or of this talk, which so happens to be Kenja no Mago. I like that. It's a simple name, easy to say. So it looks like Vincent and Nick are the only people who would watch this one. I think I only watched half of it, but I can't be sure. I was reading the manga, so I know a little bit what was happening, so that's why I kind of I didn't really get into this anime. But is it worth watching, or?
Okay, who wants to start first?
If you want me to, let me just pull up the title because I didn't do that. Crap, where is it? I think it was not as bad as a lot of the power trippy isekai shows tend to be. Again, one of the, in my opinion, the largest reasons that you have for the reincarnation type shows is because you want to bring someone from the modern world into a world where you can apply your understanding of science and physics in a way that, you know, the individuals are so vested in just their magic system, they never stop to consider science at this time. So it's almost kind of medieval, not like to liken it to our own dark past, but when it comes to the understanding of the world, they know they have magic, they know they have a system of it, and that's all that, you know, they're training in their ability to use magic, and that's all they ever see it as. So the interesting thing here is we have a character who comes along and he starts using magic to manipulate science. So instead of just making fire, he kind of can control the atoms or the aspects of air to not only make the fire, but assist it in burning or burning hotter. So when he starts applying like science and physics to magic, he starts also kind of teaching the way that he does magic to a lot of the cast of characters. So while they're not necessarily as powerful as him, he makes this team that is by all means rather overpowered, like his whole team, in comparison to how school traditionally teaches magic. And this one kind of had a story where through almost like a Super Saiyan-esque rage, some people can go Majin, or demonoid, as I believe it was translated, where your eyes turn red and you get, normally when you go Majin, that's magic running out of control, you go into this like berserker state where, you know, the being is lost to rage. It's almost like the Naofumi Wrath Shield, if you will. And there's really no coming back from that. But in this world, there is a character who realized that you can stop just short of going full berserk and retain your mind. So he's making a lot of people, he's almost manufacturing these like half Majin beings who retain their mind but are also very powerful at the same time. And if not for our protagonist, like just happened to grow up in the world right around this time, the denizens of the world would be extremely unprepared to mitigate this newfound threat. That happened when he was like around the age of what, like 16 or something. And another thing about this show is it's not quite a harem. It vests itself in the interest of just one protagonist with, you know, one of the supporting characters, and it never tried to be a harem. It was, I mean, not to liken it to too many bad names, but the only other title that I could recently think of doing that was the it gags so many people, but Sword Art Online, in which Kirito, you know, and Asuna were kind of like a canon thing. So without it being a harem isekai show on too much of a power trip, it's probably better, but not, I mean, if you're pretty much already done with most of that genre already, it's not going to rekindle your interest in it. It's just a better example if you really get peeved by the two overpowered characters in a harem-esque situation. That's at least not present.
I believe another title was The Chivalry of a Failed Knight or something like that.
I don't know if that was isekai.
I'm just saying, it was a title where there's a bunch of females, but he was really invested in one.
Okay. I was trying, well, Sword Art was kind of isekai anyway with the video game world, but...
There were a bunch of females, but he's only invested in one. Totally sounds like some light novel.
So with this Kenjin Amago, I read a web novel of it, and then they stopped translating it. Then I found out there's a manga, and I started reading it. So when it came to the anime, I didn't watch the anime because I've already know a lot of the story and what was going on, and it seemed pretty faithful to what was being told of the manga. Now, of course, they skipped some explanation of some things and went through the story a little more fast-paced, but other than that, it was really close to what I remember from the manga, so that's why I wasn't really invested in watching it so much. But like you said, he just basically took this one class that he was in and started helping them to become stronger. And the real reason why they said that he was typically stronger than everyone else or had more utility with his abilities was because he could think of what he wanted visually a lot better than the others, because he knew more of the science between it, so that he could expand on that and make it even stronger visualization than what the people of that time could. So that's why he was so much more powerful. And I kind of did like that aspect. So like one of the biggest things, which I don't know if they focused a lot on the anime, was that he was able to make a blue flame because of how he put the oxygen and everything to make it hotter. And he tried to explain the science behind that. And also, when he does his invisibility, he explains how he's not making himself disappear. He's really just reflecting the light, so it bends around him and stuff like that. So it was kind of fun having modern science and magic working with each other to become something stronger.
See, I actually don't think they did the light bending invisibility one. That wasn't in the anime, from what I can remember at least.
Oh, well, you see, I can't remember everything.
You're good. You didn't really watch the anime.
So, but like I said, there's a lot of things in this book that I did like, but one thing that kind of turned me off and why I stopped following the manga was that, like, I was reading this because I wanted to know what he could do, how strong he can get, and how crazy things were going to go. But it seemed to focus a lot more on this romance of him and that one girl. What's her name? Cicely.
Yeah.
So, well, it was okay. This wasn't the show I was wanting to go for that, so that's why it kind of turned me off in this. But other than that, Vincent, did you want to say anything about the show?
Yeah, sure. Just a few things. At the very early, I don't remember exactly which episode. It's like 4 or 5, I think. The the wise one, not the wise, but his ex-wife. She briefly mentioned about how the language that he used sometimes is the original language of the magic, which happens to be Japanese. I don't think he actually got into that after that. They briefly mentioned it and kind of just brush it aside. I don't think they really revisited that. I was kind of curious to see if there was any extension or background story of that in the book or manga, since I didn't read either of them.
But this is one of those isekais that is rather than being summoned, teleported, or just waking up in another world, he was actually born or
Right.
resurrected into this one. So that was kind of a nice slight difference compared to all the isekais out there, where he had
Was
to
he
live.
hit by a truck though?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think at this point, unless it's going to be an isekai cooking show, I'm just gonna conveniently ignore the what kind of event that pertains to bring them into this new world. I'm just gonna completely ignore that because more I think about it, more I just wanted to get away from isekai series altogether. So I'm just gonna pretend that it's just a magical world, happens to be medieval setting, and they all got a superpower, la 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 la, and continue from there on. Unless there's cooking, then I'll take it.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of times in these shows, you either get like reincarnated completely as yourself, or you just oh jeez, sorry guys. I think like a lot of times that's to bring the character who is no longer the businessman, who might be like 30, 40 years old, who knows, into that teenage age for like growing up in this. It's just kind of like a convenient resetting. So pretty much for the most part, if the person who died in these newer isekai reincarnation shows was already old, they're probably going to be born again so that they could be younger. If they were already young, they might be just themselves. That's kind of like the rule of thumb that I've noticed. And if you must know what that was about, apparently they found a turtle in the yard and they had to show me.
Okay, well, let's go to the next title.
Tell him to put this turtle that they found in front of the camera.
You can't really see it out there. It's a little speck.
Okay, I thought it was that bowl for a second.
No.
Yeah, I thought so too. It's like that's
Like, wow, that's a really messed up turtle. Like a mutant turtle.
It was like the speck in the glass that was moving. But yeah.
All right, let's go to the next title, which we have. It's called Sarazan Mai.
Sarazanmai. It's I'm gonna skip over the description because we all know what it is. It's Ikuhara's latest thing. I was slightly disappointed by it because like his other shows kind of set a certain expectation, but I can kind of see like after you made what was that thing called? Yurikuma Arashi, which had like this grand criticism of Japanese society and how the Japanese mindset creates this culture of exclusion and control through fear and so on and so forth, that he would then turn to make a small scale drama just about a small collection of characters. And even though there's a lot of spectacle, like it doesn't really grow into some sort of like, you know, big thing. It begins with those characters and it ends with those characters and doesn't like introduce a lot of other superfluous elements. Although it does have a lot of superfluous elements, but it's mostly about its presentation. So I think if you have no expectations, then it's a pretty entertaining show. It is entertaining. The spectacle does wear thin after a bit, but by the time it does, they get rid of it. And you know, having seen enough of his shows, I kind of expect this. Like, well, they're not going to do the Sadazanmai ritual every episode. They're going to take it away eventually. It takes them like 7 or so episodes to get there. I don't know. It's a fun little style piece. It didn't like rock my world or anything.
It's also probably one of the easiest Ikuhara shows to parse.
Yeah.
The symbolism is very obvious. So if you're a type of person that stays away from Ikuhara because of all of the legwork you have to do to try and figure out just what the hell is going on, this would be a good alternative. Just because it's pretty cut and dry what's going on. And that's not to say that I understand it 100%, because I don't. Because even though it's the Diet Coke of Ikuhara, it's still Ikuhara, and you are going to have to do a little bit of work to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, I definitely didn't find myself keeping a Google Doc of personal notes that I would like write alongside watching every episode. Like I definitely did that for Yurikuma.
Same. Yes.
And I definitely did not understand Penguin Drum at all, you know, without having read some very long explainers.
Yeah, that one was pretty difficult to parse.
Yeah, Sadazanmai was pretty straightforward. I think my only real gripe with it is that there's a little too much ritualizing. Like they spend a lot of time doing all the rituals and sort of like introducing the sort of antagonist of the week only to throw them away like 3 or 4 minutes right after introducing them, and maybe you get a tiny bit of like amusing backstory theater. I felt like they should have expanded on that or cut it out, because as is, it like takes up too much time for how little it contributes to the story. Because I felt like it was cutting too much into the main story of the protagonist. Like I want to know more about them and see more of their adventures, rather than like have so much time, like 5 minutes each episode devoted to like ritualizing. But you know, other than that, it's pretty neat. I have to imagine that they had like a modern dance consultant like on staff, because like not only the obvious dancing bits, but they always get into these like modern dance poses that's kind of infectious. You know, it's like I have to stop myself from just doing it at random.
I admit I tried to do the little thing. Like, what exactly is that pose?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, it's almost a dab.
Almost, yeah.
It's the Iku dab.
Doesn't sound anime related enough. Let's just call it the Iku Circus. There we go.
Nice.
It also doesn't fall apart, so I'll give it some credit. Like Penguin Drum had the worst pacing possible, or it was like too slow at the beginning and then way too fast at the end. And then Yurikuma had some, you could feel the compression at the end. They had to like explain a whole lot and just sort of, I don't know. This one felt like it was evenly paced and relatively well executed, like compared to other Ikuhara anime. So I'll give it that. It's like a relatively solid piece of storytelling. Vincent says the penguins were adorable, though. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, and then Yurikuma had the bears, the dancing bears at the end, and the kappa were very cute. I like the one where they keep trying to steal the princess kappa, and then she
Yes.
keeps like escaping. I also love the ending sequence.
So I was actually just looking at this page, and the ending's sung by the same people that did the Bunny Senpai opening.
Hmm.
I actually like that song, so I should check that out. Is
What was it? The ending? Did you say, or opening?
the ending?
Yeah,
They did the Bunny Senpai opening, which
I only really liked this show for the ending. I didn't really watch it all the way through. I gave it like an episode or two, and I just kind of decided not for me because it was just like too abstract. Not trying to say anything bad, but I just really wasn't. It just didn't grip me. So, but I did regret not seeing the anime ending again because the thing was like a cool animated like slice like real life light show thing.
Yeah, it's really cool. And like every time I would look at that animation and just think about like how they must have done the integration and how much work that would have taken. I wish there was more of that in the show. I was like,
I might have watched it.
is there like a trope word for like when anime characters go into an abstract space and start talking with concepts and things and characters that may or may not be real?
No,
You know,
but there should be.
the quintessential example is like the mind trip scenes of Evangelion. But
Mhm.
Sarozanmai has a lot of it, and a lot of anime, like as they approach their climaxes, tend to have that. And like watching Sarozanmai's ending, I was like, oh, it's doing this thing. It made me wonder, like, is there a word in the otaku fandom for that, for this type of scene? Like, there's got to be.
Mm.
If not, maybe it's like an industry term or something. Like the writers know of it. It's like, oh, we're gonna write one of these scenes.
I don't know of it if there
I'm
is.
fine.
Okay. Yeah, I just had to ask.
all right, we'll have to look into that and see if they do. So let's go on to the next title, or anyone else have anything to say about this show?
It's really well animated, and it has pretty good designs. The music and animation is fun. So, like presentationally, it's pretty well executed.
So I do remember you saying watch at least the first episode, and then you were like on the fence between it, if you're going to continue it or not at the beginning.
Mhm.
So what made you say it's worth watching it to the end, actually, now that I think about it?
I'm not necessarily saying it's worth watching to the end, but if you're entertained by the first episode, the show doesn't let you down, I guess. It will give you more of that.
All right.
But I found it to be like the least profound of Ikuhara's shows. Like I think Yurikuma Arashi was more engaging, even though it was like more difficult and maybe the storytelling was not as solid, but it had more interesting things to say. Like its ambitions were higher. Where Sarozanmai is just like a well-constructed little drama. That's my verdict on it. Hello?
Sorry, something was banging on my door.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's go on to the next title, which is I don't know what to say.
Jeez, I forgot this existed.
Oh,
JC Staff, One Punch Man.
biggest disappointment ever.
It wasn't so okay. It was bad, but it's not so bad.
It was disappointing.
Yes.
Meaning that if the first season hadn't existed, this would have been okay. But every time I watched an episode, I couldn't help but compare it to the first season, and oh, what a letdown.
The most like the easiest way you can sum it up is what do you do when your all-star animator crew doesn't show up for season 2?
Seriously.
So, in respect to what they worked with, I didn't know if you wanted to let me take it away or not. Anyone else want to start this one or no?
Go ahead.
So, yes, visually it's a disappointment. One Punch Man season 2 does not focus on the action, but I think if you were a fan of Punch Man 1, you'd already kind of get the gist of that by now, if not from the internet or just word of mouth. But so I'm not going to like waste too much time with that. As a piece of continuing more of the story, it actually kind of made me wonder if they did have too much fun with season 1. Because what we established Saitama as is the superhero whose superpower could literally be something like can finish anything off in one punch. Like if that was his superhero ability, what does that do for the character? And that's a little bit more of what, season 1 dabbled in that, but it also had these really flashy fight sequences where Saitama just simply wasn't finishing things off in one punch. There was a scene that I recall where he was like saying half serious punches and like unleashing a slurry of them. And then like only once does he have to do like a full power serious punch, and that ends the villain that was in front of him. Season 2 quite literally was like characters struggling against really strong enemy entities. And when Saitama would come take them out, they're like, oh, come on, like, although you easily took it out, how strong? Like, that guy was strong, right? And Saitama's like, oh, I can't really tell. It was still just one punch. And I felt that kind of conveyed the character a tinge better than season 1 did. Again, we all like the flashy action, though. We know that. Mm-hmm. I did want to ultimately, I mean, yes, I kind of had to like trudge through it a little bit because there was that scene where, like, I swear the one time that was just like literally a slap in the face was he went to take down an enemy and like he punches off screen. Like you see him facing the enemy. I think you just like hear the sound of the punch or something, like off screen, the camera goes to like Genos or whoever else was in the area. And then we come back to the enemy with the hole in him. And it's like, what is this? Like, not that I'm saying that we needed that action, but you're taking like the substance of what the character is out of that one fight scene. All fight scenes didn't go that way, but I mean, it just kind of continued the story of One Punch Man. I can't tell you how accurately it's following the manga or light novel because I never read those, but it just brought me into that world once again, and I think I kind of liked it. I mean, obviously, I won't like it more than season 1, but I think when it went to set up the world, there's like so much more that kind of comes into perspective with season 2. Because season 1 kind of like just like threw these developments in your face and kind of left you scatterbrained about it, where season 2 more followed a narrative. And while following the narrative, the enemies that we see pop up just kind of made more sense rather than like everybody coming up from the woodworks. So, I don't know.
So the thing I want to say about this show compared to the other one, which I thought season 1 did a lot better, was that it was more like a episode or two or a small arc per enemy, where Saitama would end the arc with him with his one punch, right? Mm-hmm. While season 2 it's just this long arc, and then they introduced so many characters, which was kind of getting annoying. Like, oh, there's this new character in this episode. There's 3 more new characters in this episode. Oh, here's another 5. So it was kind of getting annoying how they're just throwing all these new heroes, characters, and everything in there. And I think what we just liked about it was just the ridiculousness of how Saitama just would go see the enemy, show how strong he is and how he can overpower everyone, and then Saitama just go snap or punch, and they're gone, which made it really ridiculous but still fun. But now you're having this whole story arc, which I think would work for some other heroes or for some other show, but for One Punch Man, I don't know so much. And I get how it's going because it's following the manga, but I don't know. I just don't like it that way right now.
See, I'd almost like stand a little counter to that because, like, I'd say season 1 was at the fault for not introducing to us, unless, again, the story went that way. Because it only introduced a few key characters here and there, perhaps season 2 had to do the work of actually fleshing out what season 1 left out. And at the same time, you got more insight into the world of heroes and just how gimmicky, each hero kind of is. And, how are you just strong, or do you have this gimmick that you rely on, or do you actually have this ability? Because it fleshed out the world around Saitama a bit more, it did a better job at establishing, like what it's like for everybody else, because we actually see everybody else here. I don't know if that was just a constraint on season 1 because they didn't want to, introduce too many characters, or again, did that happen that way in the manga? Was it all about Saitama at first, and then did they introduce the characters the same way? I can't quite tell.
When I think about the premise of One Punch Man and how Saitama is this parody of shonen manga power battling, because he can just short circuit like all that, power battle stuff with one punch, so, but like that premise was sort of played out to the max in the first season. I was kind of wondering how the second season would expand on that, because it didn't seem like there would be a way to do that like meaningfully. And it sounds like from your guys' descriptions that they did not find a way, because they just introduced a bunch of new characters.
Well, I guess it depends on how you're viewing the anime as a whole. Is that if you see it as less of a parody on shonen action and more an examination of a character who is unfulfilled in his life, suffering from depression, you might be able to get more miles out of it. Because the parodies are only funny at a pure concept surface level, and after a while the parody isn't funny anymore because you're like, haha, we got the joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with Saitama, he feels so empty because there's no struggle anymore. He doesn't have to work at being good. There's no joy in something that he loved doing, because he says, I'm a hero for fun, or a hero as my hobby. But his hobby is no longer fulfilling, and so that's kind of the character arc that Saitama is having. We haven't had a resolution to that character arc, so who knows where it's going to go, or if it's going to be further developed. But that's kind of how I looked at the second season. But I didn't really see the second season as more parody of the genre much.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't say that I was too sold on it being full parody, but that's what I think it's more established here, is like the scale of everybody is what I was trying to say. Like, you can see other S-class heroes do their thing, fighting like assumably strong opposition, and it just kind of establishes where everybody else is at, which season 1 didn't spend too much time doing because it had a smaller cast of characters. I would say that if you really like the story, though, I mean, I don't know if this one's going to go into a third season anytime soon. I'm sure it kind of will, because the story hasn't really rode out to any kind of completion, or, are they just going to end it here? Will season 2 do so much worse than season 1 that they'll just see no vested interest in doing a season 3? I have no clue. Could it have been done in by like mass disappointment, and it, not like everybody would intentionally backlash against One Punch Man for such a thing, but will the slump in sales indicate to whoever wants to pick up the license and go for season 3 that they got work to do?
Mm-hmm. And I suppose that the first season was such large shoes to fill that if you did get second staff, it would be really hard to recreate the lightning in a bottle that was season 1. But that said, even not comparing it to season 1, there were some fights that were seriously under animated, and the animation just got shoddy at times. So I was a bit bummed with this one.
It's almost as if when they planned it on working on season one, I don't know if the creator or the licensor ever indicated to the animation company. I think the first season was done by Madhouse, that there was a possibility of second season. And I'm saying this because if you remember from the end of the season one, they tried to wrap up the series by throwing this alien invasion and whatnot, which was not really in the original series. And the season two actually do follow fairly faithfully to the manga version of it. So whole combobulating storyline is really the fault of the creator more so than the animation crew. I mean, shardiness of all that is really the crew of the ones who's in charge of season two, but the actual storyline and the sloppiness and wise all those characters being thrown in second season is really much to do with the way the series was constructed in manga version. It's almost as if the creator himself had no idea what to do with these characters and the story, so he just kind of started off with the whole gag of an overpowered superhero. Then, as it became popular, he kind of realized that, oh, okay, it's too popular to just drop it, and I kind of have to keep going. So, what do I do from here? Then he just started throwing into this whole organizational structures and internal rivalries and all this monster association, all that. I think it's almost like he's throwing everything out there at the drop of a hat without really clear mind as to what he wants to do with it. And as a result, storyline of the second season really suffer from that. But I think it's really more to do with the problem with the creator himself, more so than the animation.
I suspect that like Mob Psycho 100 is the answer to the One Punch Man problem, because it's not that obvious like how you extend One Punch Man. Like you could flesh out this parody character of One Punch Man into a more serious character or something, but I don't know why you would do that. Instead, like Mob Psycho 100 is not a parody, it's meant to be a coming of age story, and thus you could write potentially an infinite number of episodes as long as they revolve around the theme coming of age. And it's also the answer to the animation problem, because like the first season of One Punch Man had all these like superstar freelance animators on it, and also animators from Studio Bones, and Mob Psycho 100 is made by Studio Bones. So if you're wondering where like all that animation star power went, it went over to Mob Psycho 100.
But yeah, I actually found it kind of interesting because one thing that we haven't like talked about yet was a new character who was introduced, Gato, who was this kid who was kind of jaded by the fact that villains are ignored and like heroes are prioritized. He was such that a character that as a kid, not only was he picked on for just kind of looking at like, you know, the side of things that monsters go through, like, you know, they had their own, like they were defending their territory or like helping their own friends. The heroes are the one who came along, and in some cases, not all, like sometimes they'd be clearly attacked. But he kind of developed this complex where he identified with the monstrous villains and sought to himself become a hero hunter, where, you know, he made it his kind of life's goal just to basically be the antagonist of heroes without being quite that a monster either. So that's part of the story of One Punch Man 2, which was not anywhere near One Punch Man 1. So like there was a lot more going on in it, and when the scenes got a little bit flashier, I was, you know, a little more like getting back into the jam of One Punch Man. But at first, I think a lot of people probably can and maybe did rage quit. I don't know.
I'm sure season 3 announcement or lack thereof will answer that question.
Yeah, I'll kind of just see if it actually gets announced, because nothing yet.
All right. Let's move on to the next title, which it's actually been a long time since we've talked about a title that was on Amazon Prime. Doro something.
Uro. You just left out one. Uro.
Oh yeah, Dororo. Yeah.
You even typed it earlier.
I wasn't paying attention. I just hit Control C, Control V. Oh yeah, it's dang it, Jessica. I should have said that.
Who else has seen this? Let's see.
I saw the first 3 episodes and I was like, this is awesome. I gotta watch more. And then I never did.
Yeah. Well, it's still awesome. 24 episodes later, you gotta watch it. For me, this was the anime of the season. Great writing, great characterization, good animation, monster designs that were not 3D CGI models, and just a really good story and themes. I don't want to say too much about the particulars because I don't want to give anything away. You really owe it to yourself to watch Dororo. Seriously, go watch it.
You know, I don't know. Part of the way through it, I know it's a really popular show, and I'm not going to necessarily talk down upon it. I just wasn't as in, like, I think it would have been better as maybe a 12 episode piece. I felt 24 was a bit long for the story that it told. But that's not saying that the show is bad. It just, in my opinion, it just kind of dragged on a bit. It spent a little bit too long with concepts of, like, demon hunting to regain aspects of oneself, and just a lot of the other kind of drama that was going on at the time. You had stories that involved Dororo as, I mean, I'll just say he is a kid who we see the backstory of, like, his parents and, like, what they did, and it just, to me, kind of dragged on a bit. So, while I will definitely not say that it's a mediocre show, I know lots of people talk highly about it and like it a whole lot. Unfortunately for me, something like, Kimetsu no Yaiba came along and quickly kind of, like, took the spot of this show for me. Like, I still finished it because I was, like, so far with it. But when Kimetsu no Yaiba, with its flashier action scenes and more shonen tones, hit, I was just like, that's almost what I want to see a little bit more in a lot of shows. And while Dororo was more of a tale of somebody who was literally cursed, like, before birth to make a land prosperous, who was supposed to have not have made it pretty much right around birth, but it's almost like this underdog story of him coming back and finding how to slowly remove this curse that he had no ability to weigh in on. And it was an interesting story. I don't know if I came across something like it again, I definitely want it to be a lot more condensed than like a 2-core herb. That's just my take.
According to my anime list, this is rated R.
Well, I guess it does have a lot of blood in the fight scenes, but not anything I would call extreme. Certainly not Tarantino levels of blood.
I kind of doubt that the Motion Picture Association of America gave this thing a rating.
I think this is just my anime list ratings. It says rated R, 17+ for violence and profanity.
Shouldn't it be, what are this, the TV rating is 14 or something? Oh, yeah, TVMA, Vincent's got it. Which, do streaming services have ratings? That's the other question. I don't
know, but whenever there's, like, really important concepts at the beginning of an episode, like the one with Valvrave and even the one with Sword Art Online, they preface that thing with a warning that none of the other episodes have.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I've come to notice.
I don't know. I would recommend this if you are into philosophy, especially utilitarianism, because this takes a very critical look at that concept and the human cost of such a thing. But I also really like that nothing is black and white. Everything's kind of gray, and that every character does something that makes sense to them on their on a personal level. Is you won't find any mustache twirling villains here. It's everybody's pretty layered and complex, and that's why I love it so much.
I agree. One of the things that was actually the most refreshing to me is when they had way too much fun with the story and did like one of the more outlier episodes where there was this demon who was like making people talk in opposites. I had a lot of fun with that episode.
Yeah, that one was so tonally weird. What the heck is this doing in the series?
But you know, when that was like one of my like recent episode high points, you could see like I was just looking for something to kind of like it spends a lot of time going over the concept. Like you kind of know that he's hunting after demons because he's found that it can help him reclaim his body, and he wants to be complete. It's not even a just question of like, you know, and like one of the messages here, well, not messages, but one of the ultimate ethic challenges here is he was sacrificed to make a land prosperous. And as he was reclaiming his body back, which should have been rightfully his, the prosperity was being undone and the land was falling back to kind of ruin, drought, and sickness. And it's not that it challenges you, the viewer, because you're kind of just like watching the story, but it is a piece that you can kind of talk to people about. I haven't had any conversations about Dororo, but you can talk about the themes of what's going on here, and you can not challenge people's ethics, but just get a lot of insight into the way people view the world. And as I was just kind of saying, it spent a lot of time doing that. It was very driven when it was following that narrative, and other times it would just kind of follow momentary character arcs with not like a different set of characters, but when it introduced the new, not villain of the week, but just a new character along the way in the travels, because when you travel, you just have to meet people. That's, you know, if you don't meet anybody, that's kind of how it goes. So when we were told the next story, you are introduced these stories that were sometimes interesting to see how the demon operated and how it had influence over the people around it. But then like other times it was just cut and dry. It was a monster, go fight the monster. And there was like nothing really going on about it. So as it kind of ebbed back and forth between straight up monsters and like ethical demon challenges, that's where, like I was trying to say, it kind of started drawing out, in my opinion. And while I enjoy the show, it just, to me, it just, like I said, I think I would have liked this story to be condensed a bit more, but that's just my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go on to the next title. Let's go away from this gray, gloomy world into something a little more brighter. Yay! Let's all relax with our wolf lolly
Wolf
girl or whatever. Fox, right? Sorry.
I swear you do that stuff intentionally sometimes.
I don't know. I was thinking of something else. I don't know why I said wolf.
What were the wolves you thinking about spicy at all? Was it a spicy wolf? Spice and wolf.
So we got the fox lollies and the how to relax with them, right? It's all about the fluffiness of everything.
Nah.
I was trying to watch this as another title under my belt, but then I got halfway and I was like, this is too much fluffiness, I guess. That's all he kept on saying. Fluffy, my fluffy.
No such thing.
But it seems like a few people were able to get through it, Nick and Vincent. So Vincent, did this show relax you? Was it everything that you needed to end the day, to let it loose?
I wanted to, but I didn't have a floppiness with me. My goodness, this series. I wish Albert was here because then I'm sure he'll refute that that's not him.
Because then we could just call him Nakano-kun.
Right. uh, this was very forgettable series, really. Very underwhelming. Animation was okay. I actually think their two of a previous more troublesome topic was actually done better job animating wise. This looked very rough from get go and never really got better. If you see some parts of the series, it's almost as if they're constantly rushing to get the characters drawn in and just either fixated on the floppy tails, and everybody looks kind of jagged looking. I don't know whether that's just by intentional or not. Storyline is just what you expected. She comes, she caters to him, and she never quite fixed the problem. Then there's an existential crisis towards the end. Then they get resolved, and they go right back to the regular old days. There's really no high drama or anything towards speaking of. And I think someone mentioned, I don't know, was it? I forgot who mentioned that at the beginning of the series about how after the credit rolls, they have this like a Super Senko show where they kind of thrust the whole thing into the first person view was a little off-putting or jarring, and that never really went away. It just kind of feels weird staring at the screen for about 30 seconds. That has nothing to do with the storyline. I think that's just a waste of space of whatever. But
It
otherwise,
cuts out the middleman.
I suppose so, but they throw the extra characters along the way. This Shiro gets edited, then Sora gets thrown in towards the end. There's a plot device, but neither of them really contributes to anything. Just a little bit, but not enough to really make it worthwhile. And I think not having enough characters in this series kind of did. Uh, I think it didn't do them any service. I think that they should have actually added a few more characters just to make things more lively.
I will have to say that when I got to that one scene where they were in the bath and the tail got wet and the fluffiness went away, his face of despair was awesome.
You like your tragedy, don't you?
Oh my goodness, it was so cool. His fluffiness has gone away.
I actually kind of had a different reason for watching this show. What's it called? Seiwayaki Kitsune no Senko-san. I kind of wondered, like, the story, as we know, follows this business salaryman protagonist who just gets drained in his everyday life. He doesn't work for a black company, but it's a company that kind of pushes him kind of hard. He seems to have a pretty quintessential role. And when he took a vacation once, things were, they were calling him, when are you coming back? Can you come back early and, help us out? We're like nothing without you. Yet at other times, his boss will frequently chew him out. And he's constantly seen with developing this kind of black aura around his shoulders. And Senko, for whatever reason, is a character who wants to alleviate that from him. And I always kind of figured there was a reason. Why this guy? And he kind of even asks sometimes, I'm probably not the guy who has it the worst. Why me? And the story ultimately does go into, an ancestral reincarnation of the guy helped her out a lot in the past when she was a lot younger. And ever since, she kind of grafted to this reincarnating existence and just always wants to repay back that kindness that was originally kind of dealt to her. And the reason doesn't really matter. It's whatever fixes you to a person, or in this case, a reincarnated time and time again entity. I didn't really mind that at all. I just kind of wanted to get the gist of how healing can Senko be. We could see that through all the help that she gives with, cooking him the nice Japanese meals and just kind of, yeah, as Sean likes to say, being the multi-rolled person in his life, the mom, sister, girlfriend, whatever.
Yeah, and the fact that she has this connection like makes her the ultimate childhood friend. She's been your friend all the way in your past life. Like, it doesn't get more childhood friend than that. So that's yet another role that she can take on simultaneously.
And part of the way through, I kind of felt that was never going to be addressed. Not the childhood friend thing, the dealing with the darkness around him. Because, like, once you alleviate that, does that relieve Senko of her role? Will she forever leave him alone if she could deal with this gloominess? And it was kind of interesting because the series almost directly acknowledged me wondering that. I know it didn't do anything special for me. But around the time Nakano returned home to check on his dad, who went to the hospital, Senko returned home for a little bit, just to kind of restock back up in their like supernatural pad. But she kind of confronted Shiro, the multi-thousand-year-old fox spirit, as opposed to Senko, the 800-year-old, doesn't have any thousands under her belt yet. And it was kind of acknowledged that ultimately Senko cannot alleviate the gloominess from him. Like Shiro says, like, you're not a person that can do that for him. What will you do? And Senko says, like, I'm going to probably return anyway, because, she had her backstory reason. And in a weird, like, point of conflict, the greater fox spirit says, like, what if I won't let you? And it was just kind of like acknowledging that the series might go somewhere. It got to a truly, like point of no return almost. Like, oh gosh, where's the story going to go from here? And then it just totally goes back to the story that it always was. And I'm just like, okay. That's all I could say about this show is okay.
You shouldn't have expected this show to go anywhere.
I didn't, but
for Nakano to be anything other than a complete audience surrogate, like, he may as well not exist.
But it was interesting that it almost seemed like it tried, and then it went, nope. Like, how dare you? How dare you seem like you're going to try to do this and then go, nope. Just don't do it at all.
Yeah, if the main character were like special or specific in any way, like, he would cease to function as an audience surrogate. And that's why the black cloud is just this nebulous whatever you want it to be. What's your black cloud? Skip past the end credits, and now you're the guy talking to, what's her name? Sanko-san.
Yes. But I almost kind of, it's not that I hated the show, but I just kind of hated it directly acknowledged this. You can't do this thing. Where will we go from here? And then I'm like, ugh. So while I never expected the show to go there, it almost seemed like it tried, and then it just totally backed off from that concept. And I was like, ugh. But luckily it kind of did all that at the end, so. And I wasn't like really bitter about it. They're like half the way through the core or something.
Well, that was our interesting title of this season, I would say. What we have next is something I don't even know what it is about.
You don't know what Aggressive Retsuko is?
No.
You've never seen it? It's good. You should just go watch it. Like, go watch it right now.
Really? What is this?
Go to Netflix or Now Torrents and like get that thing. This is a Sanrio animated comedy. It's an office comedy. So it's about like the daily frustrations of office life from the perspective of this character Retsuko, who's, even though she's been working at the company for a while, but she's still treated like this entry level. Like, the boss calls her the short timer because that's the boss's way of saying, oh, you're going to be gone soon because you're not committed to this job. Anyway, if you already know what Aggressive Retsuko is, then there's not much to say about the second season. It is more of that. It's really good. I will kind of spoil how it goes just by talking generally about the logic of the sitcom. And in a sitcom, every story arc always ends in a return to stasis. So that's like one of the things that's kind of frustrating about Aggressive Retsuko, is that it doesn't necessarily go anywhere in the long term, but that's part of what makes it work. You know, it has this kaleidoscope of characters that that serve to show like all the angles of the office lady life. And another thing that I looked into was like who actually makes this damn thing, and it's kind of interesting. It's animated in kind of a Flash Toon way. So there's like an animator who does the rigging. So like the characters are set up in advance for most of the animation that they will be required to do in like most scenes. And that way each episode can actually be done entirely by one person. And you know, and the chief director himself or herself, I'm not sure who he is, actually personally fully animated like several of the episodes of the show. So it's kind of unusual. It's unlike other anime in terms of like how it's made or how the staff is set up and how the workflow is done. That's just like a neat little aside. Aggressive Retsuko is a really good show. Like you will find a character that you like in this thing.
Oh, so this is a short, half episodes?
Yeah.
I think they're like 15 minutes a piece or so.
Yeah, about 11, 12 minutes or 15 minutes at most.
Oh, I don't have this on my list. I wonder why.
It's an actual Netflix original. Like it doesn't show on Japanese TV. So it's kind of hard to miss. Or I mean it's easy to miss in the sense that like they dump all the episodes all at once in that Netflix binge watch style.
Well, it looks like they also started airing on the 14th, so came out a little bit late, huh?
Yeah, it
so
came
just
out
like
towards the end of the season.
yeah.
I see. So is the second season on Netflix already, or?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why I'm talking about it.
I didn't know that. Okay, I'll check that out, I guess. It seems like something that, since it's a short, should be something easy to get into.
Yeah, just go to the first season, watch the first couple episodes, and you'll know whether you're into it or not.
Yeah, like I spent one whole day watching Ingress on Netflix.
How is that?
That was interesting.
Okay.
That was 2 seasons ago. I'll talk about it later. But
So, just answer this question really quickly. Is it a show about people who play the game, or do they make the game into a show?
actually, it's how do you say? It's kind of combination of both. I guess there's like certain people that have a certain connection with the game elements that makes them stronger, it gives them boost. But then there's people that are just playing the game because it's an actual phone game app like us. But they made that game so that they can help expand their field and stuff, you know?
Okay.
It's really weird. But
So I have another really important question. Nick, what the hell are you doing? What is that?
It's just sunglasses.
oh, it's for the eclipse, right? No, just kidding.
I thought you were like
It's like
hacking
Minicam,
cyberspace or
like
something.
practical effect edition.
Yeah, it's a sensor bar. Okay, let's go to the next title, which I'll snap. I already forgot. What are we talking about next?
I also got to be careful not to look at the computer screen, or I just reflect it right in the field.
Sorry, I was too busy listening to you guys talk about the show. I didn't get the next title.
Review Shoujo is what you said was next. Is what you said was next.
Okay, there it is. Yeah. So Sen Ryu Shoujo, which was a short that I actually really liked this season, especially the ending song. Oh God, I love the ending song. So it was, I think, another one of those half episode shorts, and it follows along this one girl, which I think we already talked about, where she replies with everything using those. You told me last season too. I can't even remember those paper, so where she writes her.
I mean, I don't know, something like Tansoku or something like that.
Yeah, and this delinquent that just so happens to join in to the club, so that but these two get along very well. So, and what was nice about it was that the final episode kind of showed how they met and how they became friends and why she's kind of has this attraction to him. But the rest of them are just these single episode shorts of them just doing random stuff to have fun. And it also seems that the friends know their kind of their feelings towards each other, so they kind of also try to push them together in each episode. But it doesn't really go anywhere. I mean, it seems like the guy's oblivious, or maybe he's just acting that way because it seems that he knows the rap he has, so he kind of tries to stay away from people because he knows that he's got a bad name, so he doesn't want anyone of them to have that kind of label placed on them as well. But that's another thing. But other than that, it's just a fun, wholesome slice of life show that you can just get with and have fun watching.
Did you say that he is a delinquent or he looks like one?
He was a delinquent. He kept on. He got into a lot of fights. I don't know if it was like his choice or maybe it's because of the roughness that he was that people would always try to fight him, and so he had that past. And you see about that in the last episode where he's like, I don't want to be known as this anymore. I want to get out of this. So he thought that by doing these poems, he can kind of get out of that kind of situation. But yeah, so like what here Vincent says, I didn't choose the thug life chose me. But you meet a few characters, which was the fortune-telling girl, the older sister, wannabe, and this one girl that has a kind of the same problem where she can't express herself with words, so she draws everything on a notepad. But it's always fun with her because she actually draws her face and the text around her, so it looks like she's talking. So, if you're looking just for a comedy slice of life, this is definitely something that's really easy to get into. And like I said, it's just short. So if you try it out and you don't like it, it's not like you're losing a lot of time. So,
it's one of those series that you can just casually drop in, watch, be happy, get your mood straight and just move on to something else type. Doesn't need to be thinking so hard about it. It has a lot of flop without actual little floppy tail. I think in that respect, I think it did a better job at setting the mood right than a certain Fox girl.
yeah, so it's a very, very great show. I'm trying to get something here for her. But I would definitely say if you like slice of life shows, check it out. But let's go ahead and go on to the new title, which this is going to be the next one once I save this. And it seems Vincent's the one that's watching this, so I have no idea what this is about either.
What do you mean Vincent's the only one? I watched it too.
I didn't watch that one.
Chocado Girl. Oh, wait, it wasn't you? Oh, that was Nick. I'm sorry. Well, of course, Nick, watch this.
I got these glasses for you. They'll help with your show the world how blind you are.
What is this, Little Magical Girls or?
No, actually, it's anime about figures, literally animating. So yeah, it was what was the title in Japanese? It was called Amazing Stranger in English for whatever reason, and the Japanese title was that. Where is it? should be down here in the shorts, but I don't know. Yeah, Cho Kado Girl 1/6 because or 1/8 or something. It was supposed to be the size of the figures that we're traditionally animating, and it was kind of cool because the characters that would animate would like have knowledge of the world in which the character was a figure of. I think it was typically biased towards anime, but there were like some video fighting game characters too that gained sentiency in this character's apartment for whatever reason. And it was largely the story of like most of his not collection, but like recent ones he was buying kind of coming to life. And also like not just being animated plastic, but like the characters were like literal, while their body was, I guess, plastic, they like, if they had like missiles or abilities, those would actualize as well. So well, I'm not a huge figure collector, and I don't really intend to be. I have a few at this point. It was just kind of it was a fun short for me. I just kind of like the concept of otaku goods kind of actualizing and not actualizing in reality, but gaining like a Toy Story-esque spin, except they don't try to hide or anything except from like everybody who's not the main protagonist. But how he kind of has fun with these figures of characters that he's liked. And the story does go on a few narratives at points. It delves into the backstory of quite a few of the characters. It tries to do a later arc about like, how were they becoming real? It tried to kind of acknowledge that. And it just did really fun things here and there. One of the bigger kind of spoilers about this show was just like in the zaniness of the script that it would write for whatever the scenario at play was. There was a point in time where a character had kind of enough of being just a figure, so they wanted to return to their story. There was a character who, in like a recreators-esque faction, could send people back into their story, like bridge the gap between the actual world and send them into the media, whether it be through a video game system or an anime DVD. But their ability worked in such a way that they had to return through that portal. Like you just can't return through any video game console. While you can enter through any video game console, your exit was like anchored into that entryway at that point. So what this character does is they hop into their world, but they leave behind like a destructive mind that like literally blows the thing up. So this character has to tell the rest of the cast that, yeah, she kind of went to return to her story. I don't know what she's going to do, but she can't come back. And I can't really send you after her because apparently getting any other disc wouldn't be that good. Like, it wouldn't work. So the protagonist comes with a workaround. He goes into the previous episode because apparently that was like a separated disc point. And that episode had like a timeline that coincided with the destroyed discs episode, where something got beamed to it. So he entered the unenterable episode through this like teleportation, like in-story meta explanation. And it just had fun with itself, and I enjoyed it. There was a time a character was realizing that she was a figure, and she kind of noticed like the little plastic company stamp somewhere on her plasticky clothing. And there was like another time where they would realize like elements of their backstory were typically acknowledged by many. They're like, oh, I have this like really embarrassing otaku secret. And the main protagonist like, yeah, I know, since I know you as a character, I was introduced to your story. So he like writes something down so she would know about like an embarrassing otaku secret of his own, and like left it not known to the rest of the cast, to which he kind of destroyed it right away. And it was just a secret she knew about him. But it just had it wasn't like the best comedy ever, but it was just kind of unique in my opinion. It had a lot of cultural jokes. It had a lot of kind of character backstory stuff at the same time. And it was just a kind of a mixed bag of humor. And while not the funniest thing I ever watched, it was something that I actually kind of liked quite a bit.
So on my anime list, it shows that there's only 2 voice actors. Is that true?
Yeah. Probably. Just like the one, like, does the male like lead do all the male voices and the female lead do all the female?
I don't know. It just shows 2 names. So I'm like, either people aren't updating this or they have no idea who anyone else.
Here, let me check because I just don't know. Did they only acknowledge 2 characters or did they? Oh yeah, they just didn't flesh out the cast of characters. Even hitting more characters doesn't really reveal anymore. So if you, as you look at that list right there, or the key visual that Tank has pulled up, the My Anime list for whatever reason only credits the bespeckled Megane protagonist character who's in the background, and Nona, the blonde-haired figure in the front, while announcing none of the other casts who are, you know, returning characters and everything after every episode 2 for the most part. So they just didn't get credited in MAL for whatever reason.
So it says this is a romance show. Is that?
It's not a serious romance. It's more, Nona is was kind of like the first figure that came in, and I guess they thought she was going to be more special, so they do this like joking, not like super joking, but somewhat like a marriage registration thing involving like the actual Japanese stamps of, you know, super officialness. And then other characters started coming to life, so it kind of concocts this forming harem story outside of the initial, like, I married my first anime figure kind of a story. So like, it sounds strange, but it was still funny, and I enjoyed watching like this otaku fest of stuff, of just elements. There was like an episode where he was discussing episode politics. He had to sneak out from his figure wife because she was jealous, and he goes and he talks with the dark-haired character, also in that key visual image, and they're just kind of like catching up on their takes on like anime that's been on air recently, and it just had a lot of jokes all over the place, and I enjoyed it for that.
I might have to check this out then.
When you say figure wife, I automatically think of Chobits.
Like the little, what was her name, Momo or whatever, like the smaller one.
Yeah, I mean, let's say one's a 1/6 scale and the other one's a 1/1 scale.
There was definitely no 1-to-1 scale. I know they do, like, I don't know if it's PVC, but there are sometimes some 1-to-1 scale, like, you know, like what, close to 10 grand costing figures, but.
Oh yeah, didn't they have that one girl from I can't remember her name, Nick's favorite girl, or not Nick's, but Nathan, geez.
Oh, Kirino?
Kirino?
Yeah, Kirino.
It's like my favorite girl. What? I think they did another one for Rem recently, which isn't anywhere near my favorite, but just of my knowledge of characters that got 1-to-1 scale, I think Rem got one.
Well, okay. So, Sean, is it worth watching this? You said you saw the first episode.
I don't even remember it. I'm like downloading a random episode right now, just so I can remember what the hell is this.
Okay, well, let's go on to the next title then. I think we're done with this. The next title we have is going to be some Demon Slayer show. Kimetsu no Yaiba.
Go get him, Cooper.
Which I think is actually... Is it 2-core? Or is it...
Yeah, at the very least, if not more.
Yeah, because I was actually surprised when I saw it was still continuing on. And I'm like, wow.
Dude, I was not surprised. Like, they didn't try to resolve anything or just do like a to be continued thing. Like, I don't know how long it's going to run. It might just be 2-core, but I don't even know if it's declared on.
Well, some shows have been doing that where they just run it and then they stop without giving you any explanation and just continue it this next season. So, but yeah, I'm actually happy it's going to continue on. It's one of the shows that
it does have an episode count. It's going to be 26
that I've been following. Not 100% on the day, but pretty close. Like once every week, I just check and see if there's a new episode. I don't know when it comes out, but usually when I check some random date, there's a new episode out. So, and it's been really fun. I have a few other friends that are watching it, and they really enjoy it. So it seems to be and show easily for people to get into. And it's continuing off where we left off in the first talk, right? His sister's been, or his family's actually been attacked by a demon. His sister's the only one that got out of it, but she's been demonized. So he's now on a mission to try to save his sister to get her out of it. And he ends up joining the demon corps, or whatever they call it, to try to solve the issue, to fight the demons and try to talk to them in a way that they can help him. So, of course, it doesn't go his way, but now in this part of the story, it seems that we're seeing a few more fellow demon hunters that are with him, and learning more of their quirks and what kind of personalities they have. And boy, these people have extreme personalities. I thought he was just the only one. But there's not much bad things, for me at least, to say about this show. It's been pretty consistent in its quality, and very enjoyable. I especially like the little talks they have at the very end of the episodes for the next episode, where they have this little like manga panel, and then they jump out and they start talking about what's going to happen next. I usually don't watch any of those, but when I saw that one, I thought it was actually really unique, and I like watching it regardless. What about you, Vincent?
Um, Not much new to add from my initial impression at the beginning of the series. Very flashy, very well animated. Um, and once that series started to get rolling, it's just going at a rather steady pace. It doesn't look like it will end anytime soon. Even at the end of the season one, it feels as if they're gonna just come back again for season two, maybe a year or two later. But which is probably not going to be a bad thing. But I don't have much to add. I enjoy watching it, if not for nothing, just to listen to the music, opening and the ending, which I like that a lot.
So, with what you said, actually, that's something I actually thought about. Was like, this show seems to be easily one of those titles that can just keep on running forever.
Mm-hmm.
And while I do enjoy it, I just hope they don't go past another two-core second season, because I think it's also one of those titles that could easily be killed by making it too long.
I mean, if you follow the traditional routes of anything from Shonen Jump, that could go on forever, 100, 500 episode and so on and so forth. I think they're trying to deliberately set the pace that kind of fits a lot like My Hero Academia. They have a one season, they take a little break, then they go for another season, but they don't make a promises of going indefinitely, just keep pumping an episode after another. And I don't know how long the animation company can hold on to this title if they decide to take the different routes about, okay, let's make a 10 seasons long out of this. I don't think they're gonna be really up for that. So you might be right on maybe do 2 seasons long, and hopefully they'll find a good timing plot to stop at it. Or maybe they'll make a movie out of it at the end after the season 2 or so. I think that would be my guess. Hopefully.
Mm-hmm. So, actually, I don't remember the ending song. What was, you said you liked both of them?
Yeah, I like the both of them. Probably because it's sung by Lisa.
Hey, they weren't. Well, they were technically sung by Lisa. Lisa was just featured in one of the two, so she wasn't like the band.
I think she's the main feature in the first opening, and I think ending she was incorporated into it. I think she gets a credit on both ends.
Yeah, she's in both. Just
Uh,
she's more of a featured artist.
Lisa, is she the one that sang in Angel Beats or?
I can't even recall of all what people do anymore.
I think she was also in Sword Art Online, if I remember correctly.
But Kimetsu no Yaiba, if you're, there's not much to say about it because it's one of those titles that people are going to be watching, and if you're not, it's probably not. It's probably because it's not your cup of tea.
I am very much looking forward to see the cosplayers in drove with this series.
I've seen a few online for like, what do you call it, Instagram, but I really want to see some live. Or
I saw one at Texas.
Oh,
They did a pretty good job too.
they're just walking around like every day.
Kind of the venue that they chose.
But people start to cosplaying the little sister with that the muzzle on her mouth. It's gonna raise a lot of eyebrow.
Yeah, no,
out
it
to
was
the venue.
Tanjiro and the blonde kid and somebody else, I forget who, was the three that I saw.
Mhm.
But like they did a really good job because like they actually made the backpack thing. Like I don't know about to actual scale or not, but they like did the actual like it was made of like legitimate wood and veneered and stuff. Like it had some work that went into it.
All right, let's go to the next title, which is going to be Golden Kamui 2.
What?
Can we squeeze one in for Albert? I'm gonna make this really quick. Golden Kamuy 2 is actually from 2 seasons ago, but I just caught up with it, and it ends in a cliffhanger, which is okay because they just announced season 3 like a week ago. So the adventure continues with season 2. The only thing I'll say that's different about it is that it doesn't have so many B team episodes, because the big problem with the first season was that every other episode it would oscillate between presentable and totally not presentable. Where this one, it seems to have evened out, and I was like waiting for the episode where everything looks terrible, but it never really came. So I don't know. I was reasonably pleased with it.
So no CG bears.
I can't guarantee a complete lack of CG bears. But the CG bears were like the least of season 1's problems.
It is the one thing that everyone picked up on, but yeah, there are some structural problems. But okay, so I will continue to watch. It's on my backlog. I just haven't gotten to it.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's okay. I also played the latest Samurai Showdown game, which has the classic character Nakoruru in it. And it was kind of weird going back to that, like more cartoony Disney princessy depiction of like a Ainu character. It almost felt like this is a little bit obsolete in the age of like Golden Kamui and like how stringent it is with depicting Ainu culture and so on and so forth. It's like weird to go back to something as anachronistic as Nakoruru. But anyway, that's all I have to say about Golden Kamui.
All right, thanks.
So Albert, was there a title that you wanted to talk about?
No, I have been extremely busy at work and have not had time to finish anything except Shield Bro. So everything else is like stopped way early. So just go ahead and talk about whatever, and I'll just listen in.
So I know you made time for Josie Kosei, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was a first episode drop.
Oh, I thought you were going to continue that for sure.
It had too much unnatural giggle.
Okay, well, actually, we're pretty much done for today, unless there's anything else someone really needs to talk about.
Let me see.
I mean,
are there any movies that came out lately? Did we already talk about that Oko's Inn or whatever?
I don't know. I think we only talked about the the Penguin movie that came out recently.
Oh yeah, Penguin Highway. Jeez.
Penguin Highway.
I think the official U.S. version is coming out like in a week, or it's out right now.
DVD should be out next week.
Also,
and then
also Fate Butterfly Blu-ray is hitting soon as well.
Yeah, and then in 2 weeks we got the Don Machi movie coming out in theaters.
Ah.
So
that totally skipped my mind.
I saw a Natsume Yujincho movie like a few days ago. That was pretty all right.
Really?
So that exists. They made a movie. It's like one really long, nicely fleshed out episode. It's got like nice backgrounds and stuff. Like I haven't seen Natsume Yujincho in a while because I just kind of got tired of it. But it's nice to come back to see the movie rendition of it. Like it's a lot nicer than a TV episode.
I believe it came out and premiered at anime convention in New York.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
Wait, what?
That was featured at the panel during the Anime NYC last year.
Last year, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think AX Promare, the Trigger movie. I think they aired it right this year. And that's going to be coming out as part of the G Kids anime whatever in September. So if you're a Trigger fan, September.
Let's see. Yeah, September 19th and one other day. I think 19th is the sub and the other day is the dub.
17th is the dub, looks like.
Right.
Yeah, so kind of pleased that they are showing a lot more movies and such.
When I was at ACON, the Texas Anime Con, 11 Arts was there, and they did a showing. So I haven't checked their site. I'm sure there might be some news of when it's going to be in theaters, but they did like a premiere showing of a 2002 title, Millennium Actress.
Ooh.
So that's going to maybe be in theaters here kind of soon.
Interesting.
What was that title?
Millennium Actress.
Oh.
I think I have that on DVD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's going to be on Blu-ray. I think it's kind of a big thing.
That's a really good show.
The Satoshi Kon movies are already on Blu-ray, but I think the transfers look kind of bad for some of them. So I don't know. I hope they remaster it or something.
Yeah, I think it is a remaster. Like, I don't know.
I don't think it was ever released officially in Blu-ray form here. It was always stuck in the DVD form through the what's the distributor? I think was through DreamWorks. Had a hands on it a while back. And oddly enough, this was one of those series that never got dubbed, which I think it could have do well in a dub form.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know that they were showing it there and talking about something that they were about to be doing with it. Can't say I recall completely.
Well, I guess we'll end the broadcast and then we can just sort of just chat here afterwards. So thank you again, everyone, for joining me. Jessica left earlier, so goodbye, Jessica. Thank you for joining us. Albert, you're always welcome. We gave a call out to you at the beginning of this episode, so you should check that out.
Okay, thanks.
And then Nick, thank you again.
Not a problem.
Yeah, tell your sisters next time she's got to plan her pool parties for another day.
I don't know what Florida schedule is going to be like.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Sean, as well. And
thanks for hosting.
Vincent, so happy you're becoming part of the regular crew. So I think we'll do another video maybe in 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how the new season's going. I'll make a post on Discord. And I don't know if some of you saw this or heard about it, but it looks like Hangouts on Air will be leaving YouTube August 1st. So we're going to have to find a new platform on how to record these. So I'll start looking into it. If you guys could help look and see if there's something else out there that we could probably try to get working. Other than that, everyone have fun. Be sure to check out our Discord. I don't know where we have it posted. It's probably somewhere. Or you can always get in contact with us, and we'll send you a link somewhere. But other than that, oh yeah, just comment on this video, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll send you a link to the Discord, and you can join us. There's not much chatting going on, but it's every once in a while someone will say something which gets some conversation going. We're kind of all split it ever since Google Plus left, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all staying strong together with anime. So thank you all, and good night.
Thank you.